All right, here we are. The Indianapolis Colts. How weird is this? Philip Rivers is a Colt now. Before we dive into Rivers and his upside or downside, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for doing so. And hit that like button, drop a comment below after the video, and let me know what you think. Any feedback is welcomed, even if you want to shred me to pieces for my Philip Rivers take on the lack of his arm strength. So here we go. Let's go. Hit that sub button. Let's get to work. We saw it in 2019. He looked like he was starting to fizzle out. And while his stats showed 4,600 passing yards, the 20 interceptions, I think, is more indicative of where Philip Rivers is in his career. He had an offense built perfectly for him. Solid rushing game, good tight end, good pass catching option on the backfield, a downfield threat in Mike Williams, and plenty of PPR upside with Keenan Allen and a few other targets that can step in when it always happens. Keenan Allen gets hurt. Here we are with the Colts. He steps into a similar situation, actually. He's surrounded by young talent at the wide receiver position. T.Y. Hilton is the veteran there, but they drafted Michael Pittman Jr., who's more of a project, and they still have Zach Pascal and Paris Campbell from the previous two drafts in the second and third round. A lot of upside, a lot of weapons around him, and a lot of budding talent. They also have Nyheim Hines to catch the ball out of the backfield to go with an outstanding offensive line that can both pass pro for Philip Rivers and run block for Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor. This offense can be absolutely potent, but all of that depends on Philip Rivers being able to hit his targets accurately and deliver the football in a timely fashion. Well, I don't think that downfield passing game is going to be significant for the Colts. I do think that Philip Rivers will be an adequate quarterback 2 streamer or a bench type player that you can use for bye weeks. He's got the upside because of the offense around him. And similar to what we talked about with the Steelers video, Big Ben is also surrounded by talent. And whether he's too old or losing his luster in the field as a field general, I still think he can be supported by the role players around him. All right, Jonathan Taylor, the fantastic Wisconsin running back that racked up over 2,000 rushing yards in back-to-back seasons to close out his collegiate career. Likely taking the role from Marlon Mack. Whether he does it to start the season or not, we'll soon find out. I think that talent will ultimately take over here. Marlon Mack was a very serviceable running back, looked very good at times, but was often banged up. And I think as soon as that happens, we see a little issue with Marlon Mack with a hamstring or a shoulder injury, whatever it might be, that kind of keeps him labored. I think that Jonathan Taylor gets in there, starts getting the lion's share of the carries and touches, and he won't look back. I doubt either of them end up with over 200 carries this year unless one of them is injured, in which case I think the other one has potential to win you your fantasy football league. The issue with both of them right now is they're kind of being drafted in their best case scenario at ADP. And if you're drafting them at their highest ADP in the best case scenario, you're banking on the other one getting hurt. What I see a lot of people doing now is drafting them both. Now, that's two kind of wasted draft picks in my opinion, drafting two players way above what they're supposed to be drafted at their actual value rather than their perceived value. Now, Marlon Mack had over 1,000 yards on 247 carries. It was just over 4 yards per carry, had 8 rushing touchdowns, and they're just was more meat left on the bone for Marlon Mack. He needed to do more with the opportunity given to him. That was a lot of carries for a 2019 running back. And if you look at the offensive line being one of the top 3 run blocking offensive lines in the NFL, you just wanted more. And he had a few very nice weeks. He had a nice stretch of 4 or 5 games, over 100 total yards, racked up 4 or 5 touchdowns in that stretch. And we wanted that all year. And I think Jonathan Taylor can have that if Mack goes down. Mack, I think, if Taylor goes down, it can still be an RB1, but I don't know if he's going to have the upside that Taylor has. All right, so T.Y. Hilton banged up a lot, only played 10 games. His averages through those 10 games were brutal. He just averaged 4.5 receptions per game, 50 yards per game, and a half touchdown per game. That is bad. Even if you extrapolate that for a 16-game season, it was just around 70 receptions for 800 yards and 7.5 touchdowns. Not very good. And if we look at what he did in 2018 with 76 receptions for 1,270 and 6 scores, I think there's much more upside here in 2020. With Philip Rivers likely targeting him often, and I think he probably will pepper him with targets because he's the veteran, and Phillip Rivers likes those sure-handed wide receivers. T.Y. Hilton, he is one of those, and I conservatively project him for 74 receptions, 1,002 yards, and 7.5 touchdowns in 2020. I think there's more upside there, likely a better pick in best ball leagues because he often has those big games, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, 10 receptions, and then goes silent for a couple weeks. Target T.Y. Hilton in all formats. You can do so with confidence. I think he's a top 20 wide receiver in 2020. Zach Pascal, Paris Campbell, they're still there. Michael Pittman Jr., likely the 4th wide receiving option to start the season. Will Pittman take over one of their roles in the offense? I don't think so, at least not early. Both those guys are pretty talented. They have early draft pedigree, 2nd and 3rd round for both respectively. And Michael Pittman Jr., he has plenty of upside, but I think he's more of a project. He's 6'4", 220 pounds, has great downfield speed, fights for the football. He's a big body, he's strong, he's athletic, and there's plenty of upside. I think when we're looking at here, though, is a 2021, maybe 2022 breakout type wide receiving target. Dynasty leagues, I love Michael Pittman, but a lot of that will also be contingent upon the Colts finding a replacement for Phillip Rivers whenever he rides off into the sunset. And when that happens, well, there'll be a quarterback that can throw the ball to Michael Pittman, who I think at the time when this happens will likely be the #1 wide receiver for the Colts. I don't know. That's a lot to invest into for a very talented rookie in a tough spot for the long view. Here we go again. The legend of Jack Doyle remains. It will never die. This guy remains fantasy relevant for years, and he's going to do so once again. Currently being drafted as the 17th tight end off the board. I think he has top 10 upside, top 12, and I think that you can pretty much look at him and say he can have the type of season we thought Hunter Henry could in 2019. And if Doyle is able to stay healthy, I don't see why Rivers won't look at him as the #2 passing option truly and just absolutely pepper him like we've always seen Phillip Rivers do with the tight end position. All right, Colts fans, you have a lot to be excited about in 2020. I think Rivers there is going to help them immensely. They have a great running game, fantastic defense. The only issue for them is how much does Rivers have left in the tank and how good is that division going to be? Thanks for tuning in. Tune back in for the Jacksonville Jaguars, which are up next as the 12th team we research and dive into out of our 32-team series. Please hit that subscribe button, support some free content. Thanks so much for your time, and together we rise or fall.